Opioids are an epidemic that transcends socioeconomic status, and the persons most at risk are often the ones you would least expect. They are people you know, degreed professionals with families and no prior history of problematic substance use. Then they are faced with a mental or physical illness that threatens to crumble who and what they are from within. Such is the story of Steve Buell, a retired public servant from Prince Edward Island. Steve worked for 35 years as a technology specialist for persons with disabilities. He was married and lived in a home with his wife and his cats, and to most people, he seemed like a normal guy, just going about his life, even though secretly he was addicted to opioids. Steve didn't experiment with drugs or buy from an unsafe supply. For over 20 years, he has lived with debilitating chronic pain, and his problematic drug use began with pain management under his doctor's care. We sent Steve a list of questions in advance, and here's what he had to say.
Tell us a little about your life up to the point where you started noticing problems with pain.
Uh, I could say my life was normal up until that point, but that wouldn't be completely accurate. I was working in Ottawa in the public service. I had just arrived there in 1999. Shortly after that, about 2 years after that, I got married. So that'd be about 2001, 2002, actually 2002 in the spring. And by the fall of 2002, I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disorder. It started in my neck, and it just radiated out from there. Um, and it came to the point where I was having a hard time going to work, uh, taking care of myself, just living independently. So that was the beginning. After the diagnosis, I finally got a family doctor, and we started uh, pain management at that point with predominantly with anti-inflammatory drugs. Started off with the light, low dose ones, and it gradually moved up. Um, from that point, um, the dosage of anti-inflammatories just started to have other detrimental effects, like with gastrointestinal issues as well, um, and just general malaise. And I wasn't really handling the pain at all by that point, because with a degenerative condition, you're really just trying to maintain it. Um, Trying to get the sequence in my head again. Um, After the higher doses, or along with the higher doses of anti-inflammatories, there was physiotherapy, um, massage therapy, just other exercise regimes that had some positive effect. But again, as things progressed, that lost its effectiveness, and the pain was starting to take over everything again. Then we get into the point around, I guess it would be about 2005, 2006, where I just bought a house. That's why I remember the time frame fairly well. We started looking at opioid drugs at that point. Um, and of course, the popular one at the time was Oxy, and it was an interesting experience. Fortunately, I had reactions to Oxy, and after a week or two, I couldn't take that anymore, because it would just have me on the couch, not able to move because of severe nausea. So I guess if there was anything lucky about it, it was I couldn't take Oxy. As we all learned later, that was not the wonder drug that it was purported to be. Um, so we started trying other medications. The next one, it was the first time I had heard of it, but everyone's heard of it now. It was fentanyl. And I knew it could be problematic when the doctor looked me in the eye and said, "This can kill you." So it kind of made me very cautious of limiting the dosage of that. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess in retrospect, I had a similar reaction later on to fentanyl, and I wound up not being able to continue with that regime. Um, and we moved on down through the pharmacopoeia. Uh, we finally landed on tramadol and, well, Zytram and Tramoset, which both are tramadol based. Um, One is a longer acting, it's about once every 12 hours, and the other, the Tramoset, was sort of as needed for breakthrough pain. Uh, Actually, no, I forgot one. We went through buprenorphine, which was, if you've been following along with the Purdue Pharma and the Sackler thing, um, buprenorphine is an opioid. It was a dermal patch, and it worked very well. Um, I wasn't having adverse side effects. I wasn't having a whole lot of pain. I was able to function after a fashion, but I developed a skin reaction to the contact area of the drug. And I wound up, unfortunately, in that case, not being able to continue with that. Then we went to the tramadol stage. That would have been about 2008 or 9 by this point. And everything was working quite well. I went along merrily on my way, thinking I was doing pretty good. I was fairly relaxed most of the time. I wasn't in a whole lot of pain, but I wasn't really looking to be pain free. I was just trying to be pain tolerant. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Um, Ultimately, it didn't turn out that way. Um, I guess I'm condensing some of your questions here, but I'll just keep rambling if that's okay. Um, I went along for probably I'm trying to get the timing again. Probably until about 2016, thinking everything was okay. There had been an event that happened the year before. My wife had passed away, and I was trying to deal with that as well. Um, and once my caregiving, see, my wife had been sick for a fairly long time. Once that wasn't occupying my mind for most of my time, I my body decided, you're no longer a caregiver. Now it's your turn to be sick, and things kind of went off the rails with the pain, and probably some depression in there as well. I wound up retiring 6 months earlier than I normally would have, and basically spent the next few months in kind of self-imposed isolation. So this COVID thing is not terribly new to me. Some people call it social isolation, others call it lifestyle. Um, Now we're getting to the point where I realized there was issues. I was home a lot in the dark by myself, listening to the radio or reading a book or just existing. And my medication use, instead of being pain tolerant, I was using it to become pain avoidant, meaning if I thought I was going to experience breakthrough pain, I would take more drugs. And that's where it really started becoming a problem that I didn't see at, of course, while you're in the water, you don't think about the water. When I really realized there was a problem was I was getting angry uh, at everything. Even my pharmacist, the one who was giving me the drugs, when little things would go wrong, things that would normally just, you'd brush them off and have no issues, I would just freak out. And one day I had an episode and I had the presence of mind to relax, think about it, not do anything, acting on my anger for actually a couple of days, and realized that the drugs were probably the cause of my mood swings. And I decided at that point to quit. And a couple of weeks later, I told my doctor. And I was going through some serious withdrawal by that time. So that's will get us up to the question of, did I use any, what was the term you used? I'm sorry.
Did you use any harm reduction?
Yes. That phrase, I'm familiar with it, but I just not in that context. Yes, I did. To just deal with the side effects, I convinced my doctor to refer me for medical marijuana use. And while it did very little for the pain, it helped my managing both the pain and the withdrawal. By handling the withdrawal, I had more energy to focus on managing the pain. And I had also noticed during that time that not being in the routine of going to an office job and sitting in a static position for 8 hours a day relieved some of the pain. Because if you have problems with your spine, sitting all day is probably not the best thing in the world. So that started to ease off. And I worked with that for quite a while. I'm still using it actually, but mostly CBD. Unfortunately, the science on it isn't really as complete as it could be. But there is more information coming out. And right now, me and my prescriber are working on optimal dosing, higher doses of CBD and very, very minimal THC, like microdosing. I think the lowest capsule that I take, I don't inhale anything because I also quit smoking in 2016. The lowest capsule strength available is like 2.5 milligrams, which is not even enough to show up on a roadside sobriety test. But I don't drive when I take it, so that's never going to happen anyway. And then we get to now. Oh no, I skipped over it. Currently taking any opioids? No, I do not. Actually, stopping in November of 2017 was the beginning of at the end. I could go a couple of days, but then there would be a massive breakthrough episode, and I would have to take one or the other, one of the Zytram or one of the Tramoset, but that was very, very limited. The last time I got the prescription filled for 100 capsules, I wound up sending 80 of them back to the pharmacy, perhaps, something like that. I kept them around for a couple of months before I sent them back to the pharmacy, but I had completely stopped at that point. Then, looking back, what would you do differently? Whew. I don't know. To be honest, I wasn't terribly familiar with chronic pain of this sort. I had had something similar for a number of years. In fact, I still have it. It's called tinnitus. It's ringing in the ears. I've had that since 1993, and getting accustomed to that was quite similar to getting accustomed to chronic pain. It's a constant annoyance, and I was railing against it. And I was taking anti-anxiety medication for that. But I weaned myself off those, and I developed mood management techniques to deal with it. And a lot of those techniques I learned dealing with that condition translated into dealing with the degenerative disc disorder and the chronic pain. So basically, that's how I manage right now. Doing anything differently, I probably would have not taken any opioids at all. I don't know where it'd be if I did that, but I since it didn't happen, I can't really imagine where I would be with that. Ultimately, though, things worked out. I survived. I made other lifestyle adjustments. I became a little more active. I wasn't isolating as much. I started going out for bi-weekly breakfast with Todd Lyons, and great guy. Anyway, tell him I said hi if he's not lurking in the background. And I realized at one stage that living in Ottawa, since I had moved there from Prince Edward Island for my job, and with my wife not being around and not working, I decided it was time to return to Prince Edward Island. So after 20 years, I made the move back, and I'm still dealing with chronic pain and with the tinnitus, managing a lot better. Currently, there's arthritic condition in both hips, and I'm waiting for a consult on replacement of both. So that's just another little flower of pain to add to the bouquet. But we're dealing with that too. It's limiting, but it's manageable. And I take a lot less Tylenol than I ever used to. So, yeah. Advice for youth regarding opioids. If you have to use them for, say, a surgical condition or because of an injury, try to use them for the shortest amount possible. If you can avoid using them at all, I would say, yeah, try that. But to be honest, they can be an effective tool, but they have to be managed a lot differently than they were 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago. So, yeah, try to find another method if you can. And I'm not going to recommend other drugs because that's not my area of expertise, but definitely try a pain management regime that reduces any exposure to opioids. I again can say they are effective, but they're not something that we should be reaching for in the first instance.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh, no problem. We can do this another time if you have follow-up questions. Just, you've got my details. You can ping me if you need me.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.